Welcome to the Uneducated PT podcast with me, your host, Karl O'Rourke. This is where we have interests and conversations and try to learn a little bit more about the world. If you like conversations like this, make sure you're subscribed so we can build a platform and get better and better guests on over time.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Oh, jeez, there's great money to be made.
Yeah, I suppose you charge a lot and it probably doesn't cost
and it's
that
only
much.
that size.
Yeah, exactly, true. Are we
Sorry.
Welcome back to the Uneducated PT podcast. This is where we bring on intelligent people to teach me about topics that I don't understand, and that is why Ken is here. Ken, before we get into a couple of different kind of topics that we're going to touch on, things like immigration, things like Tusla as well, I just wanted to start by letting you give a quick background into how you got into Irish politics, what you were doing before. Obviously we were just speaking about working in the pubs, and what does your role look like today in regards to Irish politics?
That's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But first question was, how did I get into politics?
Yes.
Well, politics was always in our house.
Yes.
My dad was a TD for Fianna Fáil.
Okay, right.
And he retired in 2011, I think it was. So quite some time ago. So politics was always in our house. My mother's family were very political.
Yeah.
So my mother was the person who joined the political parties first, and got involved in that system. And lo and behold, my father joined after, or he was enrolled or enlisted. But republicanism and old IRA and all those stories we grew up on from my grandparents and great grandparents. They would have been. I would have had family members that were heavily involved in Republican movements back in 1916, 1920. I would have grown up with stories of my grandmother telling stories about how the Black and Tans broke into the house, and all those type of stories. And you know what? You hear these people who come from, I hate the word political dynasty, because I don't think I'm a political dynasty by any means. I think you have to be about 6 generations to be a dynasty. But you hear these people who say, oh yeah, because their dad was a TD or their mum was a TD or whatever, and they say, oh, we never spoke politics in the house, and we never did, it was always family life. Go away, you bullshit. You know what? It's the reality is, in our house, we lived and bred politics. Yeah, and it was discussed morning, noon, and night, and it was about what was in the papers, what was in current affairs, whether it was Irish politics, British politics, or what was happening in the north was very, very popular in our house in the 80s, of course. Yeah. And it was from French, American, Australian politics. And it was day and night, and I loved it. My younger brother hated it.
I was going to say, so you had brothers as well.
Yeah. So, but I loved it, and I was the one that was always interested and always wanted to hear the stories of my parents coming home from a political meeting, or something that happened on the streets, or something that's happening in the city, or what happened last night in Cork City Council. Yeah. All that sort of stuff. I loved all that, and I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with me. There probably is. But that was like going to a football match for me.
Really?
Yeah. And I would quite often go into City Hall when I was in my teens.
Really?
And my dad would be in the chamber in City Hall because it was dual mandate. You could be a councillor and be a TD at the time. And I can remember sitting and watching the entire proceedings and being interested in it. And then it's say to my dad afterwards, Jesus, when he said that, why didn't you say this, Dad?
This is what I would have said, Dad.
Exactly. So there was an awful lot of that. So so I suppose that's my background politically. So to make the transition to be the candidate myself and things like that, it's been a long road. I've served 16 years in Cork City Council. Yeah. And I have to say I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people I worked with very much so. Yeah. In particular, some of the officials I found very, very decent and very honourable to work with, and it was kind of exciting, kind of when you get big projects across the line and things like that. And look, I did love it, but the ambition was always to be in national politics, because I feel I had something to say or something to contribute.
Can I ask you even to distinguish kind of maybe like the difference in everyday roles in regards to that, and then into going national as well?
Well, all politics is local, right? So the everyday role hasn't changed for me about the tree that I got trimmed back for a lady up in Dublin Hill the other day, to making a representation about somebody's house that there's a problem with, or heating problem with, and they're very important. Yeah, they're very important to that person, because they're the bloody biggest issue in their lives at that time. So all politics being local is very much so. The transition for me is trying to keep that level going of local politics being available to your constituents. I usually do about 4 hours of canvassing on either a Friday night or a Saturday morning in different parts of the city or different parts of the county to just meet with people. I go to different churches on a Sunday, not because I'm going to 3 masses every, thinking how holy I am, but I go there and I meet a lot of people. And they might say to me, Ken, there's a pothole down the road, would you ever get on to somebody about that? Or they might have a national issue that they want me to bring up. The one thing I have noticed in the last 12 months since I've been elected is the amount of people that contact me from all over the country. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know why I wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't expecting it. And it was people that said, look, I heard you make a speech in the Dáil, or I saw it on Parliamentary TV, or I saw it on Independent Ireland website, or I got a clip of it on YouTube or whatever, somebody shared it, and I'd like you to talk about this, or I'd like to inform you more about it.
Why do you think they're coming to you now?
One of the things I brought up, which is being addressed this week in the Dáil, we have a motion before the Dáil, is about whistleblowing in this country. And there was a huge amount of people reached out to me from Limerick, Dublin, people up as far as Roscommon, people from the Garda section, from people in civil defence, people from the Women of Honour, people to do with whistleblowing all over the country, Tusla, all that sort of stuff. And it was an eye-opener across the entire
What are people saying? Is it in regards to they don't feel safe to...
The one thing that has come across to me, right, and whether it's a Garda whistleblower, an Irish Prison Service whistleblower, somebody who's involved in whistleblowing at the very highest level of banking inquiries, there is a modus operandum, exactly the same. It's an unwritten handbook, and it's destroy the person's reputation, destroy the person's livelihood, and destroy the person's mental health. And one whistleblower said to me recently, he said, I don't know if I was mad before I was a whistleblower, he said, but I'm certainly mad now. But the things that have been done to people in this country who are calling out either financial irregularity, who are calling out doctors putting springs into babies and infants in CHI, the amount of people that have been persecuted, have been ridiculed, have been financially destroyed, have been reputationally destroyed. I've met people who never had anything in their lives, I never did anything, didn't even have as much as a parking ticket, and then ended up with the names that you can't trust him. He's interested in kids. He's a child molester. He's not safe with this. The stories I've heard from whistleblowers and the amount of money that has been paid out to whistleblowers when they've proven it's unbelievable. And yet we don't have a free legal aid system for whistleblowers. So if I make a protective disclosure, and I'll talk about this in the Dáil now in the next couple of days, but if I make a protective disclosure and the modus operandum that is going out there, the handbook that is unwritten that is going out there, your life is destroyed. You have the state agency such as Tusla or the state agency such as Garda Síochána or Irish Prison Services, and they have buckets of money behind them. They can pay out because it's your taxpayers' money, it's my taxpayers' money. That's what they're going to do. They're going to, instead of addressing the problem, we're going to meet them head on with the challenge. The whistleblower doesn't. The whistleblower isn't entitled to free legal aid once they've made their protective disclosure. So the protection isn't there for them. And that was dropped last minute in the Whistleblower Act, and that needs to be reinstated. At the moment, and I don't want to go into bore you with details, but at the moment there was submissions sought by the European Union throughout all the member states. And the European Union said, we want to hear from whistleblowers. How better does the European Union protect whistleblowers? 50% of the submissions that were given in all of Europe came from the Republic of Ireland. Now, there is something seriously wrong in society, or there's something seriously wrong with whistleblower law in this country. 50% of all the submissions in the European Union came from the Republic of Ireland. So look, we are addressing that. We have what we call a PMB, a private member's motion going through the House on Wednesday. Jerry McCabe will be there in the gallery, in the public gallery, and a number of well-known whistleblowers, people that have gone through horrible ordeals in their lives. and totally, absolutely no need whatsoever for it. So we'll be bringing that to the light. We're having a press conference after that, and we will be bringing private members' legislation in 2026 to protect them. And we're taking a large delegation of whistleblowers out to Europe to present to the European Union and present to MEPs on the inefficient laws that we have in this country and how they're not being acted upon.
Why did you choose Independent Ireland? Like you said, your dad was a Fianna Fáil man, and
do you really want to go into that?
I'd say there was a few debates on that.
So I left Fianna Fáil. I closed the door very softly on Fianna Fáil. Fianna Fáil. I presented myself as a candidate to Fianna Fáil for general election. I was after proving myself as a poll topper on 3 occasions to the Fianna Fáil organisation. It's difficult when you ask the question. It was a very difficult period that I went through at the time, and to leave that part of your life. But creative differences, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
That's a political way of saying it, isn't it?
But people know why I left and where I went, and I don't think my type of personality or the type of person I am didn't really suit the type of Fianna Fáil type of person that they want today. Like Micheál likes a certain type of person who, it's a bit like the nodding dog that you buy in the Chinese shops, and the ones waving the hand, so you're nodding all the time and agreeing. I've always been a person to speak my mind. Whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, at least it's my opinion. At least that's what I believe. That doesn't suit a lot of people in politics. But I think it's the right way to be. I think it's the right way to be, and it's the authentic way to be.
Do you think that's why people feel that they can come to you in regards to them kind of whistleblowing incidents, because it can be apparent that you're speaking what you feel?
Well, look, I hate saying about myself. There's a genuineness to me, but there's things that I sit down and meet with people at times, and I think the most generous thing you can be to people is with your time. And you just hear stories, whether it's somebody that's been in whether it's one of the Women of Honour, whether it's one of the whistleblowers on the Garda cases, and you just hear what they're going through, and you just, if I don't give them a voice, who's going to do it? It's not going to be a backbencher from Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael that is afraid of rocking the boat because they mightn't be promoted at the next junior ministry, or they mightn't get the next committee chairmanship or whatever. If I don't do it, who's going to do it for them? Because and you know what? The opposition isn't much better. I look around at opposition parties, and they're afraid to take on the civil service. They're afraid to take on or say what needs to be said. They're afraid, and I hear it all the time, particularly about Sinn Féin. People are very angry and annoyed with Sinn Féin at the moment, and they're annoyed with them because they felt they had a group that they could depend on. They felt that there was a group that was on their side. And the one thing that people have said to me, they'll tell you one thing at the door, and then they go into Leinster House and they say an absolute different thing, because they think it's the right thing to say, because they don't want to get a bad kind of reputation off the Irish Times or the Independent or whatever. Or, everything has gone so PC now. Everyone is afraid to say something, or they'll say, "Oh, but you can't say that publicly." Well, why the hell can't you say it publicly? Some things just need to be said. And if I take the battering and I get it wrong, I get it wrong. But at least I said it, and at least we started a conversation.
Well, in regards to them 3 main parties, they all had the same stance on immigration. And now, what's your opinion on Simon Harris coming out and saying that Ireland's migration numbers are too high after kind of years of the government?
I have to say, only that it happened to myself, I wouldn't believe it happened. We've been very strong on our immigration stance, and we've been not aggressive about it, but we've said this is what we believe. We want tighter regulations. I'm very hot-blooded about the situation, and I've said it in the Dáil and I've said it outside the Dáil. I don't believe people should be entering this country without a passport. I think the idea of people tearing up passports is just absolutely insane to me. I have it on very good authority from a member of the immigration staff who said to me there was a man entered Dublin Airport, and when one of these standard questions they have to ask is, how did you enter Dublin Airport? And he said, laughingly, hot air balloon. I'm sorry, you're here actually to seek you're here coming into this country to look for help, to look for asylum. If you were a genuine asylum seeker, I don't think you'll be doing that. And there are people that are economic migrants coming into the country and freeloading and sponging after crossing their way through Europe. And I think the reality for me is that if you arrived from a war-torn country and you're genuine, absolutely, you should be looked after and you should be helped as much as possible. But bringing in thousands and thousands of people, jamming them into hotels of different ethnic minorities, different religious views, and fusing them all together was always a bad idea.
Yeah.
And here is a country who already has 16,000 Irish people in sheltered accommodation, homeless situations, emergency accommodation. 6,000 of those are children. And you think you can manage 100,000 Ukrainians and maybe 30, 40,000 more from outside other countries? And your track record on running direct provisions is poor, to say the least. So how can you justify you can manage that? And then you look at the Danish model, where they've managed their migration and they've made sure that it's under control and they've made sure that it's genuine cases and they've made sure that, and this is within Europe. Mm-hmm. This is within Europe that they were able to do that. They were able to ensure that their country was safe. They were able to ensure that they were looking at people that could be removed very quickly if they were a threat to the state. They introduced laws that protected their borders, that protected their citizens, and didn't destroy their economy. 1.1 billion euros spent last year on migration centres. Like, where are we going to get the money from? And I'm sick to death of listening to Micheál and Simon across the way saying, oh, we're the wealthiest country in the nation. We're one of the wealthiest countries in Europe. I'm sorry, but go down to my Lidl or Aldi and talk to my neighbours and talk to my friends and talk to the woman who's digging through her handbag and talk to me on a Thursday night when I'm back in Cork and I'm looking into the fucking shopping basket and I'm saying, that was 72 quid.
Yeah.
What did we buy?
Yeah, I don't think anyone feels that we're the wealthiest country.
I certainly don't feel wealthier. Yeah. My home heating bill came in the other day and the oil and the whole lot, and you're thinking just, geez, where? And then you have shrinkflation on top of it. Yeah. But let me go back to Simon Harris.
Yeah, why did he flip-flop, do you think?
That's his modus operandi, right? Yeah. I'll tell you one thing about Harris. The man that called me a dog whistler in the Dáil 6 months ago and shouted with, there was a junior minister with him, I can't think of his name, Niall Richmond, and dog whistling, calling me the dog whistler because asking genuine questions. That was about the 1.7 million that was spent on Ukrainian cars at the time. Asking a genuine question, where was the fund coming from and where did it come out of? And to be called a dog whistler, and then for himself and his junior minister to shout over shame, 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 as if I was in the Game of Thrones, right? And you're looking at these guys and going, are you in the real world at all? And then he comes out 6 months later when he begins to realise that he hasn't been listening to the Irish population, that he hasn't been listening to his own party members, that he hasn't been listening to people on the ground. Because only by talking to people, only by listening to people on the ground and saying, there's something wrong here. Yeah. But what's wrong, I think, in Irish politics is ministers surround themselves with yes men. Yeah. And, oh yes, Minister, geez, that's a great idea. That was a fantastic speech, Minister. You know what? I have two people working inside my office, Kieran and Eileen, and they're absolutely fabulous. I know them a long time. And they'll come into the office, and I call Eileen Mammy, even though she's the same age as myself. I think she's a bit younger than me. But I call her Mammy. And the two of them will say, well, you made a balls of that today, Ken.
Keep you on your toes, basically.
Absolutely. No, but they'll tell you straight out.
Yeah.
You're screwing up here, you're doing well on this was very good, you need to work better on that, and you never call this person back, and I'm not taking the abuse for it. And they're brilliant. You have to surround yourself with people that will stand up to you and that will tell you straight out, you're going down the wrong direction.
Do you think that's why it's important if you're in politics on a national level that you're still surrounding yourself with the public and talking to people, like you said?
You have to be talking to people.
Yeah.
You're not going, you go into that building and, there's very few windows in that building. You never realise the time. I remember the other day, I said, we'll go for something to eat. I said, it's lunchtime and it was 5 o'clock, right? So you do kind of get lost in everything that's going on inside there. And you can be surrounded with the sycophants who all want to be promoted, or they all want this job as an advisor, or they want to be on this state body. Or
you end up in a bubble, really, do you?
And you do, and you can see it. I never drink in the Doyle bar.
Yeah.
I had a pint of Guinness with my husband there last Christmas, and I think that's about the only. No, they do serve a nice pint.
Guinness.
It's a nice Guinness.
I'll try it in myself.
I have to say, you're more than welcome to call it someday. But I don't go drinking with TDs. There's a big culture of that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm there to do it, and I'm not anti-drink or anything like that. You know, I had the bar and restaurant myself. Yeah. But I think you have to be professional about it as well, and I think you need to be talking to people. I think you need to be getting the hearing what's really affecting people, what's on the ground, because very often what's in the print media is their agenda.
Yeah.
And whether it's the Times, the Independent, the Observer, whatever, it's their opinion. There's the public opinion and published opinion can be very, very different at times. Yeah. And when you sit down and you talk to the fella in the corner in Albert Lynch's pub in Mallow, or you go down to the Groves in Blackpool, or you go over to the top of the hill in Granabraher, and you talk to people, and they have a very different agenda, they have a very different view on life. Yeah. And they'll tell you very straight out what's affecting them and what's not affecting them, and what they're interested in. And very often it's very different to what you're being told by NGOs, by what you're told by groups that have spent hundreds of thousands of euros on research and this thing and that thing and the other, and we've had an academic in to tell us this and the other. Go up and sit in Mary's kitchen and have a cup of tea with her, and meet the husband that comes in, or the three young fellas that, or the young fella that's stuck inside the box room who's 36 and he's earning 70 grand a year and he can't buy a house. Go up and talk to people like that, and you'll see where the country is, and you'll see where people are very anxious about and very angry about.
Now that the government are changing their tune on immigration, could you explain the implications of, let's say, if the UK tighten up its asylum and migration rules, what that could mean for Ireland?
Okay, so again, the government is being reactionary rather than proactive, okay? So what's going to happen, what's been announced in the UK, we will see something very similar to the Danish model being implemented in the UK. So that is a tightening up of border control. That is a lot of deportations. The fear we have in this country, and correctly, and Jim O'Callaghan was right about this, I have to say, call a spade when somebody is right, they're right. He said, if we don't act with the UK on this, and we don't have the same, we will, and I believe it. I said it on TV the other night. I was admonished by some Fianna Fáil senator afterwards, but Ireland will become a dumping ground for refugees. So if there's a hard border to get into the UK, to retain your citizenship in the UK, to access of services in the UK, where are you going to go? And bear in mind that there is 80% of the people that are landing claiming asylum are coming into Belfast. Okay, so we're only a couple of hours away. Okay, and with 400 kilometres of open border. The problem that I see, and I think it hasn't been the elephant in the room that I'm seeing all the time, if there's somebody coming in and there's in Belfast and they're claiming asylum there, and the Irish government isn't talking to the British government, I would imagine there's an awful lot of people on a double bubble, claiming asylum there and claiming asylum here, and getting two sets of social welfare.
Absolutely.
So it has to be. Look, criminality is there, and we have to it's not about being cruel to people. We want to toughen up. Independent Ron said we want the genuine cases, absolutely, but we want to toughen up on immigration where you have huge amounts of criminal activity in the prostitution world, moving women and children through Ireland, through the UK, and we have to tighten up on that immediately. That's human trafficking. That's the most awful thing. And I think that one of the cruelest things that you can do in life is leave somebody languishing in an iPad centre for 8-9 years while their appeal process is going through, and their appeal process is going through, and the only people making money out of that are solicitors. And they're able to get free legal aid, right? Where the guy who's whistleblowing can't get free legal aid. The world is very unevenly divided with these things, and it drives people insane. People are not annoyed that we have refugees in the country, or we have somebody with a different religion or perhaps a different colour to us. They're not annoyed about that. They're annoyed about the fact that we have Irish people on the streets. We have people in the Simon community that are queuing up to get into Simon for 11 o'clock at night, that are told you have to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning, that are wandering the streets. Our own Irish people. And then you see somebody coming into the country without the decency, claiming asylum, without the decency of coming in with their real documentation or their passports, that's being handed a medical card, that's been handed private accommodation, they've been handed their toiletries, they've been handed 3 meals a day, plus social welfare payment on top of that. In all fairness.
Yeah, well, they tried to claim that it's compassion, but the way that...
Well, let's be compassionate to everybody.
Yeah.
Let's treat everybody equally.
Well, it's actually it's not compassionate at all in that regard, because other people end up suffering through that as well. And one thing you touched on there that I wanted to actually get your thoughts on. So a recent inspection in Dublin North City found Tusla's Child Protection Service not safe, adequate or timely, with delays of over 6 months in screening at risk for kids, leaving them without support. What's your view on this? And how broken do you think
Tusla is?
Yeah.
Tusla is a disgrace of an organisation. Yeah. It spends thousands and thousands of euros every year trying to destroy whistleblowers' lives.
Yeah.
Right? Tusla is not fit for purpose.
Yeah.
I think the reality is that these are the questions actually I put down and found out information actually about Tusla. There seems to be, every day, there seems to be a scandal after scandal after scandal with Tusla.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there.
Really don't. Do you think we could have...
They're not fit for purpose.
Do you think we could have something like, at the level of like, even with the UK grooming gangs, in regards to, people keeping quiet about something? I know I read a UCD study on child... there's a UCD study led by Mary Canning called Protecting Against Predators. I don't know if you read it, which found that kids, especially girls in residential care, are being targeted for sexual exploitation by organised predatory groups. And yeah, they're essentially saying that, like, they're treating missing from care as behaviour problems, as we've heard when, Tusla made that statement about a young girl absconding, and, this could be
that really, that made my blood boil.
Where this could be a
10-year-old absconded.
Yeah, where this could be a lot more sinister than that, but there doesn't seem to be any real investigations.
There's no investigations, there's no data, it's like pulling teeth from the organisation.
Yeah.
Look, we do recognise that human trafficking is a big problem in this country.
Yeah.
I think we have to work out who these children are, identify what they are. I think if you drill down into a lot of it, it is related to human trafficking, whether we like it or not, and it's a horrible underbelly that is, if it's happened. Look, the reality is that there's information that will tell you what's happened in Sweden. There's information what will tell you happened in Denmark. The collection of information is happening in the UK. Yeah. The collection of information is happening in France. Yeah. Yet in Ireland, there is no collection of information. Yeah. Now, if you're telling me that it's happening all over mainland Europe, I don't think there's a magic button or there's something that happens when you fly into Ireland, you're not a paedophile anymore. Yeah, like you follow the trends. Exactly. If it's happening in the UK, there must be something happening here as well. Yeah. What scale it's on, we don't know because we don't have data. Because they're not giving us the data. Yeah. You look for the Irish Prison Service data and you ask, they can give you the ethnic background of somebody if they're a traveller, if they're a member of the travelling community, they'll give you that information, how many travellers are in Irish prisons. They won't tell you how many people serving currently in Irish prisons have refugee status, or have sought asylum. They won't give you that. Isn't it funny that they won't give you that data, but then they'll make claims on? Like, what are you going to do? Like, give the people the data. Leave us make decisions on that, rational decisions, rather than a lunatic from the far right coming along and saying every man that enters the country is a rapist. Yeah, exactly. And we've seen that as well. And there's quite a few of them go out like that. Well, isn't that funny? It's like the more you try and hide things, and the more suspicious you get. But it also means the more radical then the opposite side can become as well, because you decided to kind of shut off everything rather than put everything into the light. Correct. You lay it out all on the table. Yeah. Have the adult conversation in the room, and address it. Yeah, and that's the only way you can get over kind of a conflict or an upset. Yeah. And if you look, like everyone is saying, this is far right, and the Danish model is far right, and everything is far right. Actually, it's the Social Democrats have been in power for 3 elections in Denmark. Yeah. So a socialist party brought in these things. So it's not. It's about protecting your country. Yeah. It's about doing the right thing for your people. It's about doing the right thing for yourselves and for everybody that's coming in. And if Ireland put up its hands first day, and we had the Roger O'Gorman stuff when he sent out all the tweets inviting everyone to Ireland, that was absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, crazy. Ridiculous. And I likened it at the time if I had a house party, you know how you hear about these house parties when 15, 16-year-olds having house parties and they put up on Facebook or I suppose
Project X it's called. It's a film there.
Is it Snapchat? That people use. House party in mind and then 1,000 people arrive.
Yeah, well that's what it would be, and you have all sorts coming in, you don't know who's in there.
Exactly. Yeah. You know? And it's common sense. It's about having a small bit of cop on and a small bit of common sense and saying, well, Jesus, lads, we can't do this.
Yeah.
We can't do this. Enough is enough.
Why do you think that common sense has been lacking for so many years?
I think there's a lot of people that want to be the good boys in Europe and they want to be the best boys in Europe. I think there's a lot of people now with political ambitions, more so than there was. Like, I grew up in the 80s, okay? So I remember the big conflict at the time was Charlie Haughey or Garrett Fitzgerald, right? It was a big battle between the two of them. But they were both very interested in being Taoiseach and governing the country. There's now people that are going into politics and the ambition isn't to be the leader of the Republic of Ireland or to govern the country. The ambition now is like, what's the next job after this? What's the next, where can I be? What position in Europe can I get? Is it EU commissioner? Is it a job in a private bank in New York? Where am I going next? And I think politicians, a lot of politicians who are now in the sphere of politics and have never had life outside politics. They've never done what I've done, ran your own bar, ran your own restaurant, dealt with 39 members of staff, sat up on a Thursday night saying, how am I going to pay 39 members of staff and what have I done? All those sort of things, life experiences. There seems to be an inertia in government and ministers without real life experience. And of course you have a couple that are barristers and a couple that are teachers and whatever, but they've never ran their businesses. They kind of have that policy of, we'll go in as the minister and we'll chair the department as a chairman role rather than a managing director's role.
Do you think that leads into the kind of waste of money we've seen the government spend on certain projects? It seems like the government seemed to, there was something about spending 750,000 on 14 pieces of stairs in a park recently.
I saw that. I saw Nick Delhente's piece on that. But there you go. Like, you're walking.
And obviously you have the bike shed and you
people
have
that
numerous
visit me
things.
in Leinster House, and I've had a lot of visitors up from Cork, and I remember there was a group of ladies came from Mallow, I think it was Mallow's Women's Shed, I think it was, and lovely women. And you know what they wanted to see? They didn't want to see the chamber, they didn't want to see the Doyle Bar, they wanted to see, where's the bike shed?
Let's see if it was worth it.
We could get our money back actually if we charged to visit the bike shed.
Absolutely.
But there you go. Nobody accountable. Nobody accountable for that. And I do think, maybe we did need a bike shed. I don't know how 300 grand was spent and another 200 grand across from it for e-charging electric cars that nobody seems to have. I don't know how you come up with that money. I don't know how you spend 2 million quid on the other side at the Department of Finance and the back entrance to the Taoiseach's buildings, where they put 2 million into a shed that controls the gate, that now has a cracked pipe underneath it, so nobody can work out of it because of the smell. And it's nobody is responsible for that.
Nobody has there's any accountability at all.
Nobody's sacked. Nobody's if you made that decision inside in your private company, the board of directors or the managing director would get rid of you. That's it. It's a waste of money. You've wasted money. Nobody is sacked for that. Nobody is held responsible for it. And it's over and over again. Whether it's scanners for art museums, whether it's printers that can't fit into rooms costing £1 million, and there's no joint up thinking.
The children's hospital that's not finished either.
27, 29 times it's been told no delays again. Equipment that couldn't go into the rooms because they built the rooms too small for the equipment. Does somebody not talk to the other person? And the way you can get away with this in the civil and public service, the way you can get away with it because it's not your money, you can't be sacked from the job, and nobody is accountable. And decisions now seem to be made by committee. And it's committee after committee and meeting after meeting after meeting. Nobody takes personal responsibility, nobody signs off on it, and nobody is held responsible for it. It beggars belief. And if I was running my business today in that way, I would be out of business within a week. And I wouldn't. And I look across at the ministers that are there. And I've given personal time for quite a few of them, you know. I would have known them throughout the years from different things, from Cork City Council up.
Yeah.
And you're kind of going, nice person, but you're not fit for the job.
Yeah.
You're not capable of the job.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of it. And people that are afraid to make decisions because the civil service gets their arms around them and say, "Oh, Minister, you can't do that." And you know, I don't know if you remember. You're probably too young to remember Yes, Minister, that TV show.
Oh yeah.
But the reality is there is not much of a difference between the Sir Humphreys, and there's plenty of Sir Humphreys around.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's even the same way.
I'll give you an example of that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got a call from the Irish Times today, telling me that I've put down over 2,000 PQs. Which is the questions to various ministers, questions to departments, parliamentary questions they're called.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. I said, I don't know how many you put down. He said, no, it's 2,100 and something. And he said, but there is complaints. I said, okay. And I said, yes, some of the people in certain departments think you're sending too many. Well, busy is your job. You are paid to be busy.
Yeah.
It's my job to ask questions.
So they're essentially complaining because they're
getting work.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, pick a different job.
Yeah.
But busy is your job. You're paid to be busy. My job is to be answerable to the constituency that I represent and the people that I represent in Leinster House. And your job is to answer the fucking questions.
Yeah.
You know, it just, I was quite shocked when he rang me and said that to me. Rather than saying, well done.
Yeah.
But instead getting the, you're asking too many questions. Well, you know what? I have news for you. I'm not going to stop asking questions.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps if you answer them properly in the first place, I wouldn't have to put in another 10 to get the truth.
Speaking on even accountability and asking questions, where do you think this country is in regards to free speech and the media?
I'm worried about it.
Yeah.
In particular, when you see things in the UK where, you know, you can go to prison now for sending out a tweet.
Yeah.
Or
looking
at something.
Yeah, there's an insane amount of people being arrested, and I think, like, even if they don't serve jail time, it's more the, like, humiliation of being pulled out of your house and arrested, and then.
And it's shocking to see that. And I certainly don't want to see this state go that way.
Yeah.
You know, the reality is that we've had people in I think Sweden it was, where we had somebody make some statement about prayer and he was arrested.
Yeah, same.
Scotland, the laws there are, you know, if you pray in a group of 6, it could be conceived as holding a religious meeting in your house.
Yeah.
They're bizarre to me. That's bizarre. And I have enough respect for people in the house. There's a lot of people I disagree with entirely on their stance. Like, you know, the people before profit would be very different, look at life very, very different to me. Yeah. Social Democrats would look at life very, very different to me. Yeah. And that's okay. And I know one of the Labour Party TDs last week said I was awful, and because I quoted figures. I quoted facts, and I was the most awful person in the room because, you know, sometimes the facts, facts don't lie, but sometimes facts, you know, it damages their cause. And I think there's a lot of people don't want to see these hate speech laws because then you stop talking. And then, you know, you've shut down the debate, and they think that's the great thing to do. Well, you know, I would argue differently. And I would say always, let's have the debate, let's be respectful to each other, and let's base it on facts and figures, okay? Prove me wrong, or I'll prove you wrong. Either one or the other. But let's have the conversation, let's have the debate, and let's be adult about it. Don't start calling people Nazis. Don't call, if you say something, you're a racist, you're a Nazi, you're this, you're that, you're the other. Remove the name calling from that. Let's deal on facts and figures, okay? But once you take that logic away and you're saying you can't say it, and publicly you can't say it, you can't make a statement here and you can't make a statement there on Twitter or Facebook or whatever social media post is there at the moment, that becomes very, very dangerous. Because then it goes underground. So
that's when it gets radicalised.
That's when it gets radicalised. And that's how Nazi Germany rose.
I was about to say.
It was in the beer halls in Frankfurt and the beer halls in Munich where these type of conversations were underground. And it was the whispers and and it was the disinformation. You know, if I say something wrong, take me on. And big enough and ugly enough to put up my hands and say, Jesus, lads, I got it wrong.
I really like that phrase. It's like the best way to combat against hate speech is better speech, is to like have it out in public and just beat their argument.
Yeah. 100%, and I think, in fairness, God rest him, Charlie Kirk was brilliant at that.
Yeah,
was absolutely brilliant at that.
Yeah,
and it's debate me.
Yeah,
and that was his line. I think debate me, challenge me.
Yeah,
and sometimes I'm big enough to realise I don't get everything right.
Yeah.
And I don't think I should be crucified either because you get something wrong here and there, or you say something and you say, "Jesus, that was the wrong thing to say," or I meant to say this rather than that. You have to put your hands up and say, yeah, I got it wrong. But we'll get over it and we'll get on with it.
I think what happens to a lot of people is they feel like they know a topic because they've probably been manipulated through media to believe a certain thing, and then when they actually get confronted and asked questions about it and they can't actually stand up to their argument, then their ego gets hurt a little bit, and then it turns into either a screaming match or you're hateful or whatever it is.
They call politics show business for ugly people. There's a lot of ugly people with a lot of ugly talk trying to be in show business in the Dáil, and it doesn't help the debate. It doesn't help society. It doesn't help things move on. But I think we're going down a very, very dangerous road. We have to preserve free speech. People should have the right to their opinion. And you can say to them, no, that's not fact. That's not fact. Or they have their opinion, and that's you have to respect. Look, how often have you gone to the pub with your buddy and he says to you, I believe this, or Liverpool's a better team than Manchester United, and you might box the head off another for verbally for 10-15 minutes and whatever, but you go home and you say, well,
it is what it is.
It is what it is, but sometimes you come to an agreement about who the best player is in this team, or
I think that's different now that we live in a social media dynamic where people think that they have the power now to block you or even worse, cancel you. Essentially.
And I think that's the most dangerous thing. They're cancelling people because they had an opinion. And I think that's dangerous. And I just feel that where history has a way of repeating itself. And if you push it down to the doldrums, and if you don't talk about it, and if you're said, well, you can't say that now, you can't do this, and you have to be very careful here. But you say, I think that's when you're going to a very dangerous place. So free speech needs to be free, and we need to listen to everybody. And even fools say wise things every now and again. It's true. It's true, and that goes back to my original point about being out knocking on doors 4 or 5 hours a week, or meeting people outside the church, or being in the supermarket or whatever, talking to people. You know what? Like they might look. My grandfather had a great old saying. I didn't go to school, but I met the scholars on the way home. And there was many a scholar I met that never went to school. And brilliant words of advice and brilliant opinions from people, and people with real lived experiences. Real lived experiences, and people that you don't expect to be angry about life or are. I'm always amazed when I meet mothers of sons in their 20s and their 30s, or daughters 20s and 30s, who are saying, where did we go wrong? We sacrificed all our lives. We didn't go on the 2 holidays a year, and we got them better educated than we ever were in our lives. And here they are up in a box room earning 70 grand a year and can't buy a house. You listen to people like that and their lived experiences, and that really puts Ireland in perspective for you, or you meet people that are struggling at the tills.
Can I ask you about Labour TD Conor Sheehan, because you obviously touched on what he recently shared, that he avoided holding his same-sex partner's hand in public out of fear of abuse, highlighting what he sees as rising homophobia in Ireland. We also see that in other ways of people trying to kind of deem Ireland as a racist country, or a homophobic country, or a transphobic country. What were your thoughts on that statement?
So I'm openly gay myself. And I've been married for the last 3 years to an absolute saint. I don't know how he's still with me, but anyway. You know what? I read the remarks, and I remember picking up the phone to another very good friend of mine who's gay also, and saying, I'm going to send you something, and just read this. And are we just lucky, or what's wrong? And he just says, no, Ken. He said, it's not like that at all. Look, Fran and I don't often hold hands on the street, okay? We just don't. It's not that out of fear or anything like that. quite often he links me.
Yeah.
Walking down the streets of Cork, Mallow, the streets of Dublin.
Yeah.
We've come out of gay bars. We've not so much really, being honest with you, not. We're not big into the nightclub. You get to a certain age.
It's the cozy Irish pub.
I'm telling you, it's an old man's pub, is what I mean. Like, but like, you know, I don't get it. You walk into my local pub, and people say to me, "Ken, where's Fran tonight?"
Yeah.
Right. You know. Like this argument of Ireland is homophobic and I'm afraid to walk down the street. I think you're pandering to the media.
Yeah, I think that's
being
what it is.
Absolutely honest with you. I don't think. You know what? People are far too busy in their lives anyway to worry about who you're sleeping with, who I'm sleeping with, or what you do in the privacy of your own bedroom. If you're not hurting anyone. Most people don't give a damn, and most people aren't that interested. Of course, you're going to get the odd comment here and there where somebody's going to be nasty. I have to say, I experienced more homophobia in San Francisco.
Really?
Right? Walking down the street than I ever did in Dublin or Cork or Limerick. Right?
Like I've like for all my years living in Ireland, I've never really experienced it like in terms of even just observing people. It's like Ireland's more progressive than ever, and I just find weird statements.
I find when you tell somebody like, "Oh, this is my husband," or "I'm gay," or whatever, just some fellas do say to you, "Am I good looking?"
The only bit of attention they've ever got, you know what I mean? Because they won't get it off the wife, I wouldn't imagine.
And certainly a lot of straight fellas would say, "Am I good looking?" But you know what? I just don't.
They probably go into the George just to get a bit of attention.
Maybe. No, but like, you know, I just found the comments very bizarre, and I think Ireland has moved on so much more. And I think, you know, to be pandering to this kind of media attention, "Oh, look at me, I'm afraid to walk down the street." You know, you got your headline, well done, but don't do it at the cost of the Irish people.
Is that what it is, do you think? Do you think it's just clicks? It's like, because that's going to get clicks, you know, saying...
I haven't experienced it.
You know.
Look, there is homophobic attacks, there is horrible things said to people. I've experienced one or two of them myself online. But you know what? You get over it. I've never physically been threatened in Ireland. I've never felt unsafe in Ireland. I've never felt people being overly aggressive to me because I was gay. Never.
Do we have a bit of a kind of oppressed mindset in Ireland?
I think there are
certain
people.
Mindset?
There are certain people that will do anything for a headline. Okay. Perhaps maybe Dáil Éireann isn't for them. Maybe it's I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, or Love Island or something like that. You know, it's that sort of mindset. I need to get some clickbait. I need to get somebody talking about me. I need to get somebody feeling sorry for me.
It seems like victimhood is currency in this day and age.
It is for certain people. It is for certain people. It's a bit like the naughty child. And why are they doing it? Well, they're looking for attention. Whether it's good attention or bad attention, they're looking for attention. And I just thought Ireland has moved on an awful lot. Of course there's homophobic attacks, we know that. Of course there is homophobia out there. But I don't believe Ireland is anywhere at an unsafe level at this stage. Well, and you know, the proof of the pudding is I remember talking to my dad about the gay marriage referendum, and I said, "Well, how are you voting?" You know, I assumed he was voting anyway. The way that would have been a nice political debate at the dinner table. No, and I remember him looking at me, and the old fella goes, "I think he should be as miserable as me." And, you know. He wasn't very popular with the mother after that, I can tell you. But, you know, I think we've moved on so much, and I think there's so much to be celebrated, and there's so much acceptance there. There's people say to me, like, I always get a bit of a kick out of it, you know. I meet elderly ladies and elderly gentlemen, I say, "And how's your husband?" You know, and it's, you know, you're not expecting it from them. You know, and I don't know why I'm not expecting it from them, but it's always very refreshing and very nice. And I find... I just found those comments from Deputy Sheehan. I just found them unusual, unhelpful, and I think they didn't come from a genuine... No, he has his reality of life. Of course. I have my lived experience, and he has his lived experience. Maybe it's very, very different. maybe he's being heckled because he's a member of the Labour Party. Rather than
That's
me being naughty.
Yeah, but there's a good point. There's a good point to be made there in terms of like, okay, it's not to diminish anyone's personal experience, because people do receive hate in all sorts of ways. But then if you're going to talk about Ireland as a collective, you have to talk about it in the collective. And I think if you're talking about it in a collective,
my experience
we're a very open country.
Has been far more positive than his.
Yeah.
And my experience, and that of my friends, and I have friends from their 20s into their 50s, 60s who are gay, had a very, very different experience. And I'm genuinely, if it is his lived experience, I feel very sorry for the guy.
Absolutely.
I feel very sorry for the guy. But it's not my lived experience, and it's not the lived experience that I've seen.
Yeah, but then it's also dangerous, because you're saying, okay, Ireland is homophobic, and I'm turning around and I'm like, well, hold on, none of my friends are homophobic. The multitude of gay people that I've trained in the gym have always had welcome into the gym. I have a cousin who was gay. He's never, So I think when you're trying to brand a country as homophobic, it feels like there's some hidden agenda there. And I had Timon Mercer on here last week, and he spoke about how, Ireland was getting deemed as a racist country, and he's like, okay, well, I've experienced racism in my life once or twice, but if I'm going to look at the collective of my life experiences in Ireland, it's 99% positive.
And that's a very good way to look at it, and I think the same. I've had maybe one or two remarks only since I became a TD, really, from the old, you go into the profile and they've two friends and no photographs, so just wonder who you really are. But, you say to yourself, you get on with it, get over it. But my experience, thank God, has been much, much better than his. And my experience has been much more positive. And I think that's the majority of the experience. And most people don't give a damn who you sleep with. They're too busy in their own lives.
I wanted to touch on, you spoke about this as well online, and it's something that I spoke about and got a lot of backlash online.
What did we get into trouble with?
So the IOC believes in biology again. What's your thoughts on that?
Sorry, you're going to have to repeat that to me.
The Olympics, essentially, obviously, they're not going to have transgender women in sport. I obviously, it was
well, I don't know what you said, but I'll tell you what I was.
Well, all I said essentially was
there's a man and there's a woman. That's what I believe. There is the 1 in 600 million chance that you are born intersex. Accept that. That's science. You have an X chromosome. You have an XY chromosome. And I don't look. No matter how much, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to people, but no matter how much makeup you put on, or how many blockers you take, or how many operations you have, you're still made of a certain DNA. And if you want to live your life that way, you know what? If you're not hurting anyone, I don't give a damn. But the idea that somebody goes into a boxing match and is physically stronger and obviously physically stronger, you shouldn't be allowed in women's sports. Women's sports is for women. I don't want to be nasty to anyone, but why not become a boxer in I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand the attraction of being a male dressed as a woman, going into a boxing match with a woman. Anywhere else where a man beat a woman like that,
to rounds of applause essentially as well. Like I spoke about a Cleef situation, and I said it in the most respectful way ever. It's like everyone has their personal choice to live their life any way that they want to, and but it was very clear that the IBA did chromosome tests in 2 labs showing male biology, and essentially the IOC, it was, okay, does your passport say what gender you are? Then that's the sport gender.
I don't understand
category.
I don't understand the amount of conversation that we're having about these things at the moment. I don't get it.
Well, this was essentially going to be my question.
No, I understand, but the sports situation is, if you're female, you should be in female sports. If you're male, you should be in male sports.
Which sounds obvious, but obviously we've gone through kind of...
Yeah, the obvious isn't so obvious anymore.
And this is kind of the question that I wanted to lead on with this, is like, how do we learn from these ideologies that, you know, really get out of hand? Like we've seen obviously kids traumatized from gender affirming care. We've seen, you know, women at risk in prisons, and obviously female athletes silenced for speaking up from the exact people who are supposed to be champion women's rights.
This is the thing, you know. I look at this far left speeches at times, and from my country and from other countries, and you know, they're standing up for this and we're standing up for that, and then they're shouting everyone down who has a different opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
I really don't like that at all. I think that's very, very dangerous. Don't shout people down for having a different opinion, but you can't fight or argue with science.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes back to. You can't argue with fact. And if that is the fact, that is the fact. You have an X chromosome and an XY chromosome. That's it. Everything else is superfluous to that fact. So, you know, I think we have to be mindful of people. And as I said earlier, you know, if you want to call yourself Mary tomorrow, or call yourself Joanne tomorrow, or or Joanne wants to call herself Bob, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. That's what you want. Yeah. I may not call you Miss or Sir. You know, don't get aggressive with me if I misgender you. You know, I find the entire thing just so surreal and bizarre. And I have so much other things going on in my own life to be dealing with this type of rubbish. Yeah. You know? But I just, you know, I do question it at times, and I say to myself, you know, is this a trend? Is there more to this? I'm not sure if the amount of people that are being told, you know, do you feel comfortable in your body, or this type of idea of, you know, this, that and the other, you know, do you need, is there deeper help that you need? You know, is there something wrong more in the background? And I'm not saying it's a mental health disease or anything like that, but I think there is. I think they did have data in the States that showed that you know, after COVID, the rise of people wanting to affirm to a different gender will actually rise, and obviously there was a lot of mental health issues that came from the back of COVID, and kids kind of growing up on smartphones. I read a story the other day that you know, it seems genuine, that somebody tried to identify as a wolf, and he ended up getting mauled by a pack of wolves. And like, I read the interview, and he, you know, like, what's going through people's heads? You know, 50 years ago, if I had identified as Napoleon, I'd be in a mental institution. So, you know, I think there's some serious questions need to be asked, and I think there's a lot of help and understanding needs to be given to people. I think there's people at times that are reaching out for help and need it, and perhaps they're being guided a different direction.
Well, I think that's a big topic in terms of the mental health situation.
There's a lot of regret as well around people that have gone into a trans lifestyle and come back out of it.
Well, especially for kids, there's like, you know, you're essentially giving them irreversible operations that, you know, how many children do you know when they were younger, they might have been a bit of a tomboy and stuff like that, and then now they're like, oh, you're in the wrong body. That's what adults are essentially telling them.
Well, nobody should tell you you're in the wrong body. You know? Look, if you feel that way yourself, you know, there's a very long road ahead of you, you know. And I think at 13, 14, 15, 16...
Should you be able to make them decisions?
I don't think I knew who I was. And that's being honest about it. And I think deep down I knew I was attracted to men, but, you know, you put that away and you try to compartmentalize that and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, I think there's decisions you need to make. And by the way, the decisions I made when I was 18 or 19... You know, you look back and you say to yourself, what was I doing?
Decisions I made last week, probably.
Well, you look at some haircuts that we've all had.
There we go. Like, you can't get a tattoo, but you can change your gender.
There you go. And you can't go on the sunbeds. You know, but you can change your gender. And look, I think there needs to be a deeper understanding, and there needs to be a lot of counselling around it. I think we don't need to be using it as an issue or weaponizing it as an issue. I think there's a lot of mental health situation, and there's a lot of help that we need to give people. And I think we have to be respectful of people that are genuine. But equally, I don't think the ramming of it down your throat and pushing of that.
I think there was more tolerance for the conversation around transgenderism years ago when it wasn't actually rammed down everyone's throat over the past. Now it turned into an ideology then.
You know, I know one transgender man to a woman in Cork, and he actually went to school with my dad. And you know, there was never an issue about it. Of course, people said, "Oh, you know, she was a he." You know? There was never a drama about it or an excitement about it. You know, it was just something happening.
Well, I've spoke to people who have transitioned. You know, when they were 25, 26, also agreeing with me that this isn't something that they should be given to kids.
There is an awful lot of, and it's being documented, I believe, in the UK now, as well as the United States, that there is a lot of information now around those that have transitioned and later in life, and the connections there. And there's a lot, like, you have to dig down through data at times, because the left have a tendency to throw, the amount of trans people that have been killed in the world. I don't think there's one trans person has ever been killed in Ireland. Very few in the UK. A lot of it happens, from what I understand, in Brazil. Now that would have to do a lot of the time with trans men, or men being women. I'm probably saying it all wrong, because I get totally mixed up with all these new genders.
Well, this is the thing, you have to tiptoe around the conversation
because my brother said to me one day, you know, there's 100 and something genders. You know? No, there's, you know, I think the story is, what I was informed with, is that there's a lot of trans men or women, or who have converted to being women, in Brazil, working in the sex industry, and there is an awful lot of violence in the prostitution industry in Brazil, and a lot of that is related, and that gets parked into a lot of the data about transphobia, and it has very little to do with transphobia. It's more to do with people that are trans and are in prostitution in South America and sometimes
quite dangerous lifestyle. Exactly.
Prostitution is a dangerous lifestyle. A lot of these. And we touched on human trafficking, and a lot of these are related to money issues and violent criminal gangs.
Wasn't there an NGO in Ireland that just got closed down about trying to legalise prostitution?
I saw they got
I thought I read that.
I think Ben Scanlon had something up recently. I didn't read into too much of it. The only NGO that really got shut down in Ireland, and this really sums up Ireland to me, was the NGO that was tracking public money being spent.
Oh, right. So a positive.
An NGO that said, this is how your money is being spent, this is how your taxpayers' money are funding this NGO, how they're funding this state board. You could track everything. And I can't think of the name of it. I'll give you could flash it across the screen later. I'll text it to you. But I spoke about it in the Dáil, and it was closed down. It cost 600,000 to set up, 250,000 to shut down. The Department of Finance says it can all be done in-house. 2 years on, I think it was called Benefax.
They didn't want the spotlight on.
Didn't want the spotlight, and never continued on in the department. It's funny that, isn't it? The one NGO. The one NGO
that you could have a positive
that tracked your money, that might be able to work out who took a decision on the bicycle shed. You know, that sums up the civil service in Ireland.
Yeah. Do you think in terms of the transgender conversation, do you think that it should be taught in schools? I know Helen McEntee's husband has shares in one of these companies that obviously make a little money off.
Well, you might say that, but I couldn't possibly comment on Minister McEntee's financial affairs. I wouldn't know. I'd have to use parliamentary privilege to ask any questions like that. I do have some questions actually down around something like that recently. I think the idea of teaching trans issues and transgenderism to 8 and 9-year-olds, which is the plan of Helen McEntee when she was the Department of Education. Now she's been moved out of that, as we know. Hopefully the new minister, Hildegard Naughton, will reevaluate it. I just think it's far too young. I just think it's far too young. My niece is 9 years old. She's half Swedish. She goes to a Swedish school from where they live, and I don't think they give that sort of education even, and you know, Sweden is meant to be one of the most progressive schools.
Exactly, yeah.
Or progressive education systems.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of, you just kind of sit back and say, why would you,
Yeah.
you know? And you know, as I said, I have a niece who's 9, I have a nephew who's 6 and a nephew who's 1.5, and they know that their 2 uncles are married. But that's about it, you know. And they know that 2 men can marry and 2 women can marry, but I don't think at 9 years old they need to know what we're doing in the privacy of our own home.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I just think this kind of pushing, it does seem like pushing agendas again.
Yeah.
And you know, God, you know what? When I look back at my own childhood, you know, I was more worried about going out and playing football or stealing my brother's bike, because there was only one bike. You know, we were children of the '80s. There was only one bike in our house. You know, stealing my brother's bike before he got out, finishing the homework fast. You know, things like that. That's what was on my mind when I was 8 years old and 9 years old. It wasn't about who sleeps with who and what they do and what is this and what is that. You know, I just. You know.
Do you worry for the future of kids in this country when you think about kind of pushing kind of ideologies like that, and then also, you know, essentially growing up on screens and maybe not having the childhood that you might have grown up in, a play-based childhood versus like a screen-based childhood?
I wonder, I do, but I wonder how much of that is me being fuddy-duddy.
Yeah.
Fuddy-duddy-ism. You know, I remember like my grandmother lived with us, you know, so we had all that kind of influence as well, you know, and my grandma, like, you know, but you know, like you know, they've seen in the Golden Girls picture at Sicily 1932. My grandmother was picture of Blackpool, you know, you know, and it was you wouldn't do that in my day, you know. It was all those kind of. So maybe there's a bit of that.
Yeah.
Do I fear about children? I do.
Yeah.
You know what? I fear about the big fear I have, right, is that I wonder will my nieces and nephews ever be able to afford a home.
Yeah.
Ever be able to have the quality of life that we have.
Yeah.
And by the way, the quality of life that my parents had is much better than the quality of life we have, right? And my parents were the same. Like they started off with £20 in their pocket, and they built up 2 fine businesses, you know. Yeah. But we're able to buy a house at 18 and 21.
Yeah.
You know, they got married at 18 and 21. Imagine that now.
Yeah.
But we're able to purchase a property.
Yeah.
We're able to have children to a point where my mother sold her business and got to the stage where she said, "Okay, I'm going to stay at home with the kids," and that was their choice. We went to a good school. My father was able to look after rare 3 children on one man's wages.
Yeah.
And my mother was didn't miss out in her childhood, you know. And you just think, will my nieces or nephews ever have that quality of life? You know, will they ever be able to get on the property ladder? And you're seeing people coming up in Ireland better educated than they ever were before.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's frightening.
Yeah,
it really is frightening. So you know, I've great faith in the next generation. I look at the 3 of them, you know, and they're all very different personality-wise. You know, my godson is my favourite. But I hope they don't watch this.
You can clip that. Send it to them.
No. I'm the uncle that gives the presents, and Fran is the favourite uncle. I don't get that. But
they're still happy to see you now. Anyway, you have the presents.
But Fran is the favourite uncle anyway. But look, you know, I have great faith in the future, and you have to be positive about it. You have to say, look, the little bit that I'm doing here and there, and you know, the changes that I'm trying to make. Yeah. You know, I hope that'll benefit.
Can I ask you one question? Is there ever any conversations in the Dáil about population decline in Ireland? Because like you spoke about there, you know, 2 people getting married at 18 and 21, being able to own a home, being able to have a family. Obviously, Ireland's population birth rate is at 1.5, so it's below the level that it's supposed to be.
But yet our population has increased tremendously.
Yeah.
Like we're now at a population situation where the plan for 2035 arrived in 2025. Okay, so we have a big problem when it comes to our infrastructure.
Yeah.
We have a big problem when it comes to planning for housing, water infrastructure, ESB infrastructure, and we seem to be way advanced on the population plan we have for 2040. So that there's huge challenges ahead of us there. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier about ministers taking on roles, you have to now, as a minister, I believe, you don't have to, you can't plan for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
You have to be planning for the next generation.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference between a politician and a statesman. A statesman plans for the next generation. You know, real good men plant trees that they'll never sit in the shade of, and good women. And there are some. There's some good sorry, let me rephrase that. There's some good men and women all over the Dáil, I have to say.
Yeah.
But there are big challenges there that aren't being addressed. It's the inertia, it's not my problem, it's the sure what can we do, it's the wringing of the hands, and we'll issue another apology and we'll say we must do better, I hate when I hear, and you see it an awful lot on the front bench, is we must learn from this mistake. Nothing is ever learned from the mistake.
Yeah.
Nothing is ever learned from the mistake.
And no one's ever kept accountable for the mistake either, which...
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Ken, if people wanted to keep up with the work that you do, where can they find you?
I'm now on Twitter, or X.
X, yeah.
I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. I'm on all this.
You're quite active on it as well, aren't you?
I'm active on the Facebook.
Yeah.
Right. The Twitter, I'm a newbie. I want to find an app where you can just say one thing and it all goes. And, you know, whoever invents that app, is going to be a billionaire.
Yeah, you're speaking to different generations depending on what social media you're using.
It's a different audience.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
I'm on TikTok as well. I put up the speeches on TikTok. The one challenge that I find, honestly, is the keeping up with the DMs and the messages that go. And you know, I look at something, it comes in my private Facebook because I have a Ken O'Flynn and I have Ken O'Flynn TD. Something comes in here and then I'm saying, Jesus, Tom sent me a message there and where is it? And you're looking at WhatsApp, you're looking at all these messages that are coming through and you're looking at where did the message come from? So it does take a bit of time. I'm very fortunate that the team in the office as well have that as well. But look, I'm never too far away from the constituency. If people want to find me, the constituency office is in Mallow. There's a constituency office in Blackpool. You know, you'll find me on a Friday night in Albert Lynch's. You'll find me some most nights. You'll find me on a Thursday night after coming back from the Dáil and Tesco's or Dunn's or Aldi or Lidl in Mallow.
You'll be out with the people somewhere anyway.
Giving out about prices and But social media is very helpful to me, I have to say. It's a great way of getting communication out there. The communication back. I try to tell people, please email me. Because then you have a complete record of things. You know, it's a lot easier. And sometimes you just miss something. You know, or there's kind of spams that things go into as well. You know, when you're not following people back. So Instagram, Twitter, X, and Facebook. That's where you can find me. That was a long-winded answer.
No, perfect. We'll have it all in the show notes anyway, Ken. I appreciate you. Folks, that was the Uneducated PT podcast with me, your host, Karl O'Rourke. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and make sure you follow along on Spotify so you never miss an episode. I'll see you on the next one.